7:55 here on the East Coast. The pandemic, not the only crisis facing America as we grapple with growing border surge, the spiraling cost of goods, and the politics in the classroom, just to name a few, right?
Absolutely. In his brand new book, our next guest warns our customs, laws, and values are under assault by the far left and threatening to destroy America as we know it.
Victor Davis Hanson, you know him well. He's the author of The Dying Citizen. The book is now out, and he's here to talk to us about it. Congratulations on it. You're covering breaking issues on a regular basis on this channel now. What made you think this is the issue that needs to be looked at?
Well, it's sort of the explanation that explains the border mess and the decline of the middle class, price increases, inability to buy a house, pay back a student loan. This tribalism where we're identifying by our ethnic identification or race is essential to our persona rather than incidental. And then on the elite side, these evolutionaries that want to change the Electoral College, that make up the Supreme Court, or get rid of the filibuster, the administrative state, whether it's John Brennan or General Milley, or all of these people are not elected, but they exercise enormous power and they seem exempt from consequences of their own actions and ideology. And then finally, there's a lot of people on the two coasts that feel that we should be citizens of the world, that they look toward the Paris Climate Accord or the UN, International Criminal Court, rather than this unique constitution. So all of that explains, I think, a lot of the chaos when you diminish the power of the citizen.
Overarching.
Yeah.
Why do you call it the dying citizen?
Well, he's not dead yet, is he? So I'm optimistic that we can restore the idea of the middle class that kind of is suspicious of the very rich, and they're not dependent like the poor. We can get our borders back. We had it back just a year ago. If we had this show, we would have been talking about secure borders. I think we're going to go back to the Martin Luther King idea that the content of our character matters and not the color of our skin.
You think we're going to go there?
I do. I think that we've reached the limits of critical race theory, because where does it lead, Brian? The trajectory is something like Yugoslavia or Rwanda. That's what tribalism is. It's a pre-civilizational idea that came before civilization.
Well, you wrote the book. You might as well read a passage from it. Here's an excerpt as performed by Victor.
Given that the Constitution is difficult to amend, reformists are seeking constantly evolutionary avenues to render it inert or to change it by unconstitutional means. These evolutionaries, who wish to move beyond the framers' ideas, assume that the public has lost confidence in its ability to control its own republic, or now prefers a radical equality of result democracy.
Right, and you've got a unique point of view because you live in California, which
Yes.
has been impacted by the migrant crisis on our southern border.
Yes.
At the same time, you know, California farmers, and you're one, your family's owned property there,
Yeah.
you rely on migrants, but in the past, it has been controlled, and now it's just wide open.
Yeah, it's wide. I think people should remember, though, because of mechanization in agriculture, it accounts for about 18% of all migrant labor. And so people in the farming industry turned to almonds, get a million acres, partly because they did not want to have hand labor anymore. So most of the migrant labor, whether legal or illegal, is in meatpacking, landscaping, hospitality, hotels, restaurants. But it's a problem that when you have a labor shortage, it's not a sustainable idea to bring in cheap labor from abroad. It depresses wages here, and then it puts the onus on the state to take care of the other needs of the migrant.
Exactly.
Victor, there's nothing you can answer, but I love the fact the book is optimistic, that we're seeing how bad it's getting, and we have only to go over the cliff. And who wants to go over a cliff?
Yeah, I think everybody,
Correct?
absolutely. When you look at the news today, and you look, whether it's Afghanistan or whether it's our Pentagon or whether it's the border or inflation or loss of energy independence that we had, 3 million barrels, everybody said this can't go on. And we've got to restore the idea of an autonomous, self-reliant citizen to talk back and take control again. I think we will. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, if we don't arrest everyone that talks back and takes control.
When do you think we'll get to that point?
When I think we're at the point now, I think there's going to be a change of heart in the next midterms, and you're seeing these spontaneous grassroots. Remember, the woke revolution was top-down. It was elite-driven. This isn't.
Absolutely. I love the term that you coined, evolutionaries. Check it out. In his brand new book, it's called The Dying Citizen. Also, he's got an op-ed on foxnews.com. Victor Davis Hanson. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you all for having me.
Great to see you in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It's hour 3 of Fox and Friends. John Kerry made a stunning admission yesterday about what Joe Biden really knew or didn't know about the deal with Australia that upset France over submarines.
He asked me, he said, what's the situation? And I explained exactly, he had not been aware of that. He literally had not been aware of what had transpired, and I don't want to go into the details of it.
I think that's enough detail. Author Douglas Murray joins us right now. Douglas, good morning.
Good morning.
So what John Kerry's talking about is this deal where we essentially stabbed France in the back and did a deal with the UK and Australia for submarines. For John Kerry to say that the president didn't know about it, it kind of makes it seem like either nobody told the president what was going to happen or he forgot.
That's right. There are two other possibilities of this. And the first is that it is true that President Biden didn't realize that America had an existing understanding with the French for the building of the new submarines, and that the Australians had the deal with the French, and that the Americans and the Australians and the British coming together in a deal behind the French nation's back was effectively... That's one possibility. Joe Biden just didn't realize about that. The other possibility is John Kerry was on French television, and this is simply what you can say now. If you're an American envoy anywhere in the world, you can just say, oh, well, the president didn't know about that. So either it's the excuse to get John Kerry out of this situation, or President Biden really didn't know about the existing arrangements between the Australians and the French and didn't realize what a major issue this was going to be for the French government.
You know, and there's one other angle to it, Douglas, and that is John Kerry used to be our Secretary of State. So essentially, see, I think he's kind of throwing our current Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, under the bus. And it's like, you know, essentially he's saying, when I was Secretary of State, I'd tell the president what was going on. But obviously, he didn't know, so I blame, Tony Blinken, who is now in France trying to smooth things over with the French.
That's right. I mean, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes politicking going on here. The main thing is obviously the fact that people can just say that the president isn't aware of things, and then the politics goes on at a level beneath the president. But the thing that struck me about this as well is what the White House has been briefing out since John Kerry said this. Of course, John Kerry is the climate envoy. He was in Paris talking primarily about this. He ended up revealing this extraordinary thing about President Biden's ignorance about this deal. And the White House said, oh no, the president's been saying for a long time that American-French coordination on climate is important. Sure, but that's a totally different subject.
Right.
Totally different subject.
No kidding. Well, I wonder if the president knows about that. Don't know. All right. Douglas Murray, thank you very much for joining us from there in your library. Thank you, sir.
Great pleasure.
All right.